Hey there, Cameron, and welcome to another review of a random item from the DC streaming service, DC Universe. So, last video I talked about Batman Ninja, and at the end of it, I brought up Catwoman, specifically the 2001 series written by Ed Brubaker with art by Darwin Cook. I kept on looking at it, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna dive straight in. Obviously, it is 2019, so my memory on 2001 Batman canon is a little fuzzy. But great thing about this story is that you don't really need to know much. Basically, you're jumping in, and Catwoman has been perceived dead, assumed dead, and she's back in Gotham. She's seeing a psychiatrist, and she's just trying to figure out what she's doing with her life. What does Selena Kyle mean without Catwoman? And so it's a really good series. I read the first 24 issues. I say the first because those are the only ones that are available on the streaming service. Um, his run goes for a little bit longer, and I'm kind of curious to see where it ends up because this 24 issues that I read was just so good. The beginning has art by Darwin Cook, and then it moves to Javier Pulido, and then Cameron Stewart, who kind of takes the reins over for the rest of the series. And what this series does a really good job of mixing kind of hard-boiled crime stuff that Brubaker and Darwin Cook are both very famous for, and but mixing it in with the Gotham City that we know and with the heroes and characters that we know. I think it does a really great job of making Selena Kyle, giving her own world inside of Gotham, the East End. It's kind of her section, her area, and giving her a reason to be doing what she's doing. She's kind of in an interesting spot where she's wants to do good and is trying to do good, but still obviously has her tendencies and stuff. But what I really enjoyed about this book is that it gives you a reason for why Selena is doing what she's doing. Not just that she feels lost, having completely lost her life, but it's about her rebuilding and her kind of going back to her roots. She has some old friends from her old days before all the craziness kind of happened. This woman named Holly who comes back into her life, and they have a really great relationship, really great friendship. And Holly kind of becomes her sidekick, though don't call her a sidekick. She hates being called that. And it's just this really great story about people who are not underutilized, but not respected and who aren't taken care of in our society. So, sex workers, children, orphans, and it's about, who fights for them. Because even though Batman fights crime and cares about people, to him and Selena kind of brings up this argument that, even for Batman, these people are people who chose a life of crime. So for him, it's not really on his top priority list to help these people out. While for Selena, she understands them. Has lived that life and is helping them. So a lot of the story arcs deal with corruption, crooked cops, and kind of gang corruption. Black Mask becomes, at least in this first arc, a big central villain, and he is creepy as fuck. And he really does really horrible things. But I think, man, I'm just going off for a while, but I really enjoyed this book. The art, of course, is wonderful. Darwin Cook, passed away recently, and his redesign for Catwoman, because this is the modern version of Catwoman that we know was because of this book, because of Darwin Cook. And so it looks incredible. The black leather, just his sense of style. And then even, when we switch artists, Javier Pulido, who does amazing work, probably one of my favorite story arcs. It has the art of Javier Pulido, and it's about after all the craziness, the whole, evil plan, everything going horribly wrong, Selena Kyle's life basically falls apart. And there's a 4-issue arc where it's basically all of the characters in her life and none of them are talking to each other. They're not discussing their feelings or what's going on. They're just going away into their own little bubbles and kind of self-destructing. And it's just a really cool, interesting look at, just a group of friends who just need to talk to each other and they would feel better about themselves, but instead they're all wallowing in self-pity in their own ways. And I could go on and on about all the things that this book does really well, and I think it does a lot of them. It actually warmed me up to Selena Kyle as a character and to her world, and Holly and Slam, and all these different characters is really interesting and fascinating. And man, I'm glad I started reading this book. I've never been the biggest Catwoman person, but I love Darwin Cook, and I enjoy Ed Brubaker a lot. So it was just great to jump into this and have this fun crime book that also was very funny and very heartfelt. Very heartfelt, because it really dives deep into these characters and you really get to know them. So honestly, I hope that they add the rest of the run soon, because I only got to the first 24 issues, but it is so good. I would highly recommend it if you do have the streaming service. Just start reading it. The 24th issue just leave on kind of a cliffhanger of, obviously they're introducing this new aspect into Selena Kyle's world, but the story that you do get before that last arc, so good. Mwah. It's wonderful. Just made me feel a lot of emotions and made me really like Catwoman, which is not something I've ever really done. I've never been a big Catwoman person, but now I'm all in. So anyway, that is the 2001 Catwoman series. Like I said, I'm just going to be pulling and watching and reading a lot of random things from the service, so it's going to be all over the place. Anyway,